Welcome to Science Unwrapped as we continue our Celebrate Undergraduate Research during USU's Year of Undergraduate Research. I'm the chair of the Science Unwrapped committee. My name is Brynja Kohler, and I'm also Associate Dean and Professor in Utah State University's College of Arts and Sciences. We're really excited to be continuing our celebration of undergraduate research tonight. To introduce our featured speakers of the evening, we're very happy to have Sascha Baldauf, who's an honors student and an undergraduate researcher in the anthropology program in the School of Social Sciences, along with her faculty mentor, Dr. Molly Cannon, who's also with the School of Social Sciences. Sascha is a senior majoring in anthropology in the archaeology track, with a minor in marketing. She's also earning a certificate in museum studies and will graduate at the end of this fall semester. Sascha serves as an honors ambassador, a peer advisor, and as a museum assistant in the USU Museum of Anthropology. She is a past president of the USU's Anthropology Club, and she's an aspiring marine archaeologist with scuba diving experience and training. Recently in Mexico this past summer, she was preparing for an upcoming expedition in the Maldives. This summer, she also completed an internship with the Shipwreck Surveys Field School on the Caribbean island of Bonaire. Sounds like a pretty cool undergraduate program. Dr. Molly Cannon is an assistant professor of anthropology, and she's also the executive director and curator of Utah State's Museum of Anthropology. And she's the director of USU's Spatial Data Collection, Analysis, and Visualization Lab. She's active in teaching and research. She leads public programming, exhibition, and outreach in the museum throughout the local community, including the Anthropology Museum's popular Family First Saturdays events. So I encourage you to come to the Anthropology Museum the first Saturday of the month to check those events out. She is among Utah State University's inaugural Honors Faculty Fellows announced just this past month, and she's participating in the Honors Experiential Learning Collaborative. So please join me to welcome Sascha and Dr. Molly Cannon to the stage.
Let me turn your mic on. Thank you very much, Brynja. And thank you to the committee and all of those who are doing this hard work to coordinate these events. Science Unwrapped is one of my favorite events on campus. I remember the first time coming to one of these events and I was like, oh, I hope I get to be on stage one day. So thank you very much. These are so much fun. It is just such a great experience to share with you the hard work that we do in our laboratories and in our case, in our museum spaces. I'm gonna let Sascha introduce herself here and then we'll get started.
Yeah. Hi, guys. I know Brynja already mentioned it, but I'm Sascha. I'm the undergraduate researcher here in charge of this project. And I'm so glad that you guys are here and excited to learn about Egypt and mummies. And it's so excited to see this many people ready to learn. So let's get into it.
Let's dive in.
Yeah. So, mummy mystery. Just for context, in case anyone didn't know, this is where Egypt is on a map. It's Northeast Africa. It's just the red highlighted country. Can anyone maybe shout out or raise your hand, tell me what the first thing is that comes to your mind when you think about Egypt? Yeah, right there. The Nile. Oh, perfect. Red shirt, yeah? Amazing, yes. Yeah, blue over there. Oh, perfect, okay. Anyone else? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay, perfect, exactly. So we just have a little list of what we think. Pyramids were one of them, so perfect. I think of King Tut. Molly, what do you think of?
I think of mummies.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. The ancient Egyptians believed that the human body was the vessel for their soul. They had a strong belief in an afterlife, and in order to make that crossing to the afterlife, you needed to preserve your body so that you could help your soul make the transition.
Exactly. So it is all of those things that you just mentioned. It's also all of these things. Egypt has a huge material culture, and something that's super interesting about Egypt is I don't know if anyone had an Egypt phase as a kid or is currently in an Egypt phase, but I did. And what's so interesting about it is there's this type of allure, and part of that is the material culture that they have left behind. Now, that kind of brings us into a little comment I wanted to make about the differences between anthropology and archaeology. So anthropology is like the mother field. It is the big overarching field, and it's the study of people and why they do what they do. Now, archaeology is a subfield of anthropology. Archaeology studies materials that people of the past have left behind to learn about why they did things, how they did things, that type of thing. So I don't want to confuse anyone, but you can think of it as like not all anthropologists are archaeologists, but all archaeologists are anthropologists. So just a little comment there. And that's what makes this research particularly archaeological, because we're learning about a museum object that will tell us about certain things that ancient Egyptians have done.
Yeah, before we go on, I might ask you to think about objects for a minute. So we use that term material culture, which maybe you're familiar with or maybe not. But I bet each of you have special objects, something that you have that means something to you. And because I have children in the audience, I won't use my normal examples, but I'll use some that I brought with me today. So I wore what I call my power bracelets. These are bracelets that came from my aunt and my sister and my grandmother. And they give me that extra special confidence to stand in front of people. So they are these objects that have deep meaning to me. And they tell you a little bit of something about me. Can you think of things in your life that you have that kind of meaning? Yeah, go ahead. Your cat, yes, we all have pets. They're very special friends. I think that's right. And so today we're going to dive into this object, this museum object. We're going to ask you to look at this object with us. We're going to make some observations. We'll probably come with some assumptions, and then we're going to test those.
Exactly. So just to get into it, this is the object that we're talking about today. Here's just a little video of it rotating. Maybe take a moment. Come up with any questions you might have if you were doing this research of what you would want to ask, or maybe some assumptions you have when you first see it, observations. Can anyone think of anything?
Yes, in the back with the gray shirt. A mummified animal, okay. Yes, over here with the blue shirt. Yes. A mummified foot.
It does kind of look like a boot, doesn't it?
A boot, yes. Here with the gray shirt. Go ahead.
A dino nugget? Is that what you just said? Perfect.
Like
okay, that's a great question.
Down here in front.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
So I'm hearing things like mummified animal. Okay, so maybe not a human, but certainly maybe an animal. Wrappings. I want you to take a closer look now, and let's see if we can't describe some of those attributes of our object. Maybe the color. What kind of shape do you think it, like, is it in a good condition? Do you think we could walk around with this object? Yes. You think it's in bad shape? Yes, on the end, it's starting to unravel, isn't it? Yeah, so it has some condition issues in the peak. Yeah, so it
observation.
might have been in better condition, but it has some wear all the way in the back with maybe a purple shirt or light blue, I can't tell. A mummy? Yes, okay.
Yes.
Right here. Okay, so we're
observation.
noticing different types of what we would call textiles or cloth. So the weaving, Angela, I'm going to call you by name. How big is it? We didn't give you a scale, did we? It is about this big, so it's not very large.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I want you, as you've thought about your observations here, we're going to think about how can we find out more about this object?
Exactly. So we did exactly what you guys just did. When we first started this research, that's the exact same thing we did. We had questions about it, we had assumptions, we made observations, and the questions that we've ended up asking can be simplified into these 4. We want to know where it comes from. We want to know what the background of this object is. We also want to know if there's anything in it, and if so, what is it? Also, how old is it? And then what's it made of? So we can begin with that.
Yeah. One of the questions about what is it, it starts with this idea of where did it come from and how did we acquire this object? So in museum studies, we call this provenance research, or it's the research to find out how an object has left its original place and come to another. And so for us, we need to know who's owned this object in the past, where has it maybe traveled and been traded or sold. Is it Egyptian? I mean, we're kind of assuming it's an Egyptian object, but it might not be. And so this provenance research started with how it came to the Museum of Anthropology, which is here on our campus. I have colleagues at USU Eastern at the Prehistoric Museum. Now, some of you may know that museum. I know we had a Science Unwrapped talk about dinosaurs not too long ago from that museum. They received this object as a donation in around 2018, and they said it doesn't really fit their mission. Their mission at their museum is to collect, preserve, and tell the stories of Eastern Utah and an ancient Egyptian mummy, and in this case, mummy cat, doesn't fall within that mission. And they were talking about it at a meeting one day, and I was like, well, that fits our mission. We collect globally, because we're a museum of anthropology, and our scope is global. And so they transferred the object to us, which allows us to study it and learn more about it.
Exactly. So when I first began this research, I had a research partner named Sarah Zeller, and she was kind of in charge of the provenance research. She was able to identify the form of accession, and that has the donor information on it, who can be traced back to a Dr. Stephen Flame. We were able to get in touch with Dr. Flame, and we had a Zoom meeting talking about the background of this object. And it's really interesting, I think. So Dr. Stephen Flame has this object because it belonged to his father, Dr. Francis Flame, who was a professor of biology at Santa Clara University down in California. And though he was a professor of biology, he had a very big interest in archaeology and was very involved in the archaeology club down at that university. According to Dr. Stephen Flame, his son, Dr. Francis Flame, he obtained it from a student in the archaeology club of Egyptian origin and provided it to Dr. Francis Flame, saying he wanted to give it to him as a gift and that it was a family heirloom. So from then on, the object entered into Dr. Francis Flame's collection and sat there for a while until he sadly passed in the 90s. We actually were able to obtain his obituary right here. That object went into the possession of Dr. Stephen Flame, where he donated a large group of his father's objects to the Prehistoric Museum and then made its way here. It arrived to us with this little tag that says Gautz Memorial Museum, Mummy of Egyptian Cat, 1,000 years old. So when we first began this research, that's all the information we had to go on. And you can imagine the assumptions we've made with that tag on the mummy. So the irony of doing a Science Unwrapped on a mummy is not lost on us. We understand that maybe you were expecting a mummy unwrapping here today, but that's not what we're going to do. We might do it metaphorically. But our second question, because we just answered our first, is to see if there's anything in it. And that's what we did here today. Not today, sorry. That's what we did here. We answered the what's in it question. So we were very fortunate to have a micro CT facility through the biology department here at the university. And we worked with amazing colleagues there, Dr. Al Savitsky, Dr. Helen Plylar, and doctoral student Lauren Houston. And they were able to help us with the scanning of this mummy. And I do believe that they are here today.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, exactly. So this is the micro CT machine. That is me and my research partner, Sarah Zeller, when we're at that point holding the mummy. This is what the machine looks like, and inside there is this little pedestal here. Let's see if this will work. There's this little pedestal here with, I'm going to call it an X-ray gun. I apologize. With an X-ray gun. And when I say micro CT scanning, essentially what that is it's a 3D imaging technology that uses X-rays to scan an object to see what's inside, slice by slice. And that then generates digitally on a computer, and we can see the scan and we can go through every single layer of the mummy to look inside, as if we were actually looking at it.
So let's pause.
Yeah, go ahead.
A show of hands, who thinks there's something inside the mummy?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, okay, good. A believing audience, I love it.
Yay! When I started, I didn't think I didn't. So, okay, well, here we go. So this was the first moment that my research partner, Sarah, and I saw that there was something in it. That's what generated on the computer. And that is what was shown to us. Does anyone, when they look at that, can anyone tell me what maybe they think that looks like? Does it look like a cat? Does it look like a human?
Maybe in the red shirt in the back.
Say,
a bird?
A bird?
Okay, good guess.
Good guess.
How about down here in front? Ah,
yeah,
nice.
It looks like that, doesn't it?
Sascha, show us what you did next.
What I did next, okay. Alrighty. So, this is the skull of, here, I won't do that. This is the skull of what is inside the mummy. I was able to render this on the digital technology, and it took probably upwards of like 30 hours, 30 plus hours, something along those lines. And as you can see here, we have the eye socket right here. We have the zygomatic bone. There's the mandible. And I don't know if you can see this very well, but here are some teeth right there. Now, if this skull had the soft tissue on it, you would be able to see that those teeth have not erupted from the gums, which gives us a little indication of its age. We can also see up here, right here at the top of the skull. Do you know how like when babies have a little soft spot on the top of their head? It's because their bones haven't fully fused yet. And we see that with all types of animals. Now, that gives us another indication of how old this mummy is, along with the size. I also wanted to mention that you can see that the bone is highly degraded. It looks old, doesn't it? And that's what I thought too. And something to note with this is when you normally micro CT something, when you scan something, the the bone and the soft tissue look different. They're easy to isolate from each other because they have different densities. However, due to the mummification process here, our soft tissue and bone on this organism looks very similar. So it was very difficult to isolate the bone, which is why it took so long. But we were able to determine what type of animal this is through expert consultation and also comparative analysis, and we're going to do a little bit of that today. Can you guys maybe tell me, does our mummy look maybe like the bird or the cat or the crocodile? Can anyone tell me what they think?
Let's maybe do a raise of hands for the bird. Do you see
Oh, yeah.
Parts of the mummy skull that look similar to the bird? Raise your hand. Yeah? Okay.
A lot in the back, yeah.
And how about hands who think it looks kind of like the cat? Yeah.
Okay, a lot more.
And it was labeled cat, so
Yeah, right?
Okay.
So
How
it must
about
be.
hands who see crocodile in our mummy? A few, yes. And you'll probably notice that there are maybe some characteristics of each of them. Sascha, why do we not like the bird?
I don't really like the bird because, I love birds, but I don't know if I like this one because I don't know if you guys see this, but I think that the eyes look a little different than ours. Ours are maybe pushed up a little bit more towards the front. The bird feels like the eye is more on the side of its face.
So forward facing.
Yeah.
And how about the cat?
So I think the cat looks very similar to it. I like the eye sockets. I think that's great. The only thing I'm a little iffy on is that there's a slope, a more intense slope to the snout, and here it's not so.
Yeah, more gradual on
Yeah.
the mummy. Crocodile?
Well, with the crocodile, I think I do think that, it looks pretty close, but the mandible looks too long, I think.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of pronounced teeth.
Very pronounced teeth.
So
and
I
we know
don't-
that that's a juvenile crocodile too. So.
Exactly.
Okay. Did you find any better pictures?
I did. What do you guys think about this skull? Does it look a little more similar? Yeah, red shirt.
Monkey?
Monkey?
That was we thought about that as well until we came across this image.
Yeah.
So tell us what we're looking at.
So this is the skull of a dog. And that is what we have here with our mummy. We have a puppy. So that was really fun to find out and exciting, I think, to identify that there is actually something in it and be able to decide what's in it. Moving on to the next question.
Our next question is, how old is it? Is it ancient Egyptian? Is it 1,000 years old? That wouldn't make much sense to be ancient Egyptian and 1,000 years old. It would be much older. And so we took samples from the wrappings of the mummy. So some of you noticed that the wrappings were starting to fall off, and some of them had fallen off. And so we sampled those and sent them off for what's called radiocarbon dating.
And when we say radiocarbon dating, essentially it means that we can track the natural decay of the isotope carbon-14 to date our sample. So really, we're just trying to figure out the age. And we had results of 385 BCE to 195 BCE. BCE just means before Common Era. And that's around 2,400 years ago.
So 2,400 years old. And
Yeah.
we put on a few kind of markers on our timeline today in 2025. Many of us maybe know Cleopatra as a ruler of Egypt at the kind of end of that Greek period of Egypt, of their rule of Egypt. And then where our mummy sits in that relationship. And then the very first mummy. So the ancient Egyptians had been practicing mummification for many, many, many years by the time our object was created.
Exactly. So we're kind of just blowing through our questions. That was the answer to how old is this. So now we want to know, what is it made of? This is kind of a two-parter. So we first wanted to identify what type of fabric it's made out of. And we were very, very fortunate to have a scanning electron microscopy facility over at the engineering campus. And we worked with the amazing Dr. Fenan Shen, and she helped us with this methodology. Essentially, when I say scanning electron microscopy, I'll just shorten it to SEM. And it's kind of like a really powerful microscope that focuses a beam of electrons to scan the surface of a sample, to look at it at a very, very, very small micron level. And so that's what we did. So with this methodology, the first thing we have to do is sputter our samples in gold. And the reason for that is because it needs to be a reflective surface, so electrons don't clump onto the sample and then distort the image that we will have on our computer. And this is the machine that we did it on. Right here, the samples go in this chamber, and that's where they get kind of like lathered in gold. And then this is the microscope. So our samples go in this chamber, it closes, and then we are able to see our images on a computer. And I think Dr. Fenan Shen is here tonight. Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
So that was our process, and this is what we saw.
Yeah, so similar to the radiocarbon dating, and your observations that there are different textiles. So we were interested to see if we could image the different textiles. So we sampled again from what you can see is that dark kind of, and maybe you've noticed it looked almost coated in something in our earlier image. So we sampled a piece of the cloth there. And then we also sampled, and we'll see that picture here in a minute, but of some of the uncoated.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So as you can see here, this sample, the point of it is we're able to isolate the individual fibers in the sample, but it's completely caked, like concreted in some type of substance. So we can't really isolate individual fibers. However, with our other sample, which we took from a less or slightly less seeming coated textile or fiber, we were able to get this image. This is more of a zoomed in image, but when you have fibers at a micron level, you're able to look at the structures, and they have distinctive structures that help you identify what kind of plant it is. And for us, this is flax, which is very common with Egyptian mummification. And as you can see there, let's see if this will work. This fiber kind of is flat, and then it twists, and then it becomes flat again. That's very consistent with what flax looks like. Here is a little image of ancient Egyptians harvesting flax, and then here's just a modern image of what that looks like. I also wanted to mention that when flax is woven together, it's linen. So we have flax linen here.
Okay, the second part of our question involves sciencey words that me as an anthropologist don't often say, so I thought maybe you could say them with me. We use what's called a gas chromatography mass spectrometry. Okay, gas. I think we could all say gas. How about chromatography mass spectrometry? Yes.
Exactly.
Tell us, Sascha, what does that mean?
Yeah, so GCMS is what I'm going to refer to it as. And essentially, mass spectrometry takes samples and sorts the ions to then create chromatograms, just like this one. And the chromatogram has peaks, just like this, or some down here. Each peak represents an organic compound. And we're able to trace those organic compounds into what material was used during the mummification process in the resin. So a lot of times Egyptians will use castor oil or beeswax or carnivorous resins to use to seal the mummy during the mummification process.
And so our research has shown that this is a very complicated, complex process of what types of resins the ancient Egyptians would use. We are still going through our data, but we have identified at least one of the chemical compounds that tells us that beeswax is present on our sample. And to me, that makes a lot of sense on that dark coated sample. And on places of our mummy, it looked kind of clumpy and kind of almost like things are glued together. Well, that's part of the beeswax possibly being used in our sample.
Exactly, and we were able to identify that it's likely beeswax through the presence of stearic acid on our sample. We did this process with Patty Champagne over in the biotechnology building with the GCMS lab, and we were very fortunate to have that also on campus.
And I'll say that the Egyptians have a long history of beekeeping. So maybe some of you are beekeepers in the audience. They had been doing this for thousands of years by the time our mummy was created.
Yes, and I will mention that beeswax is not only used in like resins, but it's also used to maybe like plug up your nostrils or your ears or any holes that might be on your body. And yeah. So now that we've kind of metaphorically unwrapped the mummy, let's wrap it back up. I'm just going to quickly touch on some of the findings that we have. So we know that the mummy came from Dr. Francis Flame and was gifted to him by a student. We know that there is a puppy inside. We know that it is 2,400 years old, and it's made of flax linen, and it contains beeswax. This is object research. So we're asking what questions? What about this? What about that? I know that a lot of scientists ask the why questions, but before we could do that, we have to do this. We need to learn context about this object before we can learn why Egyptians made it. And this ties into a bit more of a bigger idea question. There is a lot of examples in Egypt today with tombs that are full of canine mummies. And in our case, a good example of this is the dog catacombs at Saqqara down in Egypt. That is a tomb that is estimated to have over 8 million canine mummies. Of course, this is not accumulated over the course of like 1 year. it's over a large span of time, but it's not like they're just kind of grabbing them off the street, you know? So this helps to add to that body of literature and also helps to provide context for often what those mummifications in the tomb that have not been studied might look like.
And as part of our work, there are still questions that we weren't able to answer. For example, we'll never probably be able to tell where our mummy came from exactly.
In Egypt, yeah.
In Egypt, because that context has been lost. So when that object has been removed from the archaeological record, it's really, really hard to try to put it back and try to figure out exactly where that came from. What we can do is look at Sascha's research and say all of these lines of evidence suggest that this object likely came from some kind of context like one of the tombs at Saqqara, but we could never say that's where it came from. That information, unfortunately, is lost.
Exactly. And before we finish up, I just wanted to make a couple of acknowledgments and make a little point. I want to thank the Flame family for donating the object to us and for making this research possible. I also want to thank the Museum of Anthropology and the Honors Program for funding this research. And I want to thank all of you for coming and all of the amazing vendors that are outside in the hallways. And lastly, I just want to mention that this research, like all research, is not just a one-person thing. As you can see, we have a lot of people that helped. Research is always, always, always a group project. And this is a great example of multidisciplinary research where we were able to utilize a lot of hard sciences to ask these archaeological questions. So thank you guys so much for coming and being interested in this research. And that's what we have for you.
Wow, that was cool. Thank you so much.
So we had a question that was asking exactly how old was the puppy. And based on the teeth and based on the fontanella, which is that soft spot up here, teeth take 2 to 4 weeks to erupt from a puppy. So it was less than 2 weeks old, which is more consistent with the idea that it was probably either just born or fully formed in the womb. And I had another question of why did they do that? And the answer is, so oftentimes when we think of, animal mummies, or at least when I think of animal mummies, it's a pet that somebody mummified to be with them in the afterlife. But perhaps most animal mummies that we find in Egypt are offerings, and they're created in the temples, and temples would then sell animal mummies to people who would then take them to the sanctuary of the corresponding god to leave as an offering for prayer. In this case, canine mummies are sufficient with Anubis. There are other like canine deities, but Anubis is the main one. So, yeah.
You might say that.
Yeah. Yeah, the microphone.
Everything that we understand, they also believed that the animals were going on to the afterlife as well. So
Yes.
not just offerings in the sense of that's just it, but those animals then got to live on as well.
Yeah, they're going into the afterlife to live on as well. So yeah, any other questions? Does anyone have any? Yeah, over there. Do we want to run the microphone back up? So sorry, Molly.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
My one question is,
Yes.
how do you think this sample was collected in the first place? You said it was like a gift that was collected from somewhere. And you also mentioned that like when archaeological objects are tampered with, it's very difficult to recall information.
Exactly.
So I'm curious as to like how this was collected as like a family gift.
And I'm going to be honest, that's all the information that we have from Dr. Stephen Flame, that it was a family heirloom. We can always make assumptions, or we can just assume that it probably could have been taken from a tomb. It could have been looted. It could have been, bought from a temple and then never used in a sanctuary and just taken to a family home. But we'll never know. I'm so sorry that that's not a more extensive answer. Yeah, of course. Thank you for your question.
Is there a question here?
Yeah.
I'll come over there, okay?
Tell me.
My question is, how close do you think we are to finding Cleopatra's tomb?
Oh, well, that's a good question. I am going to be totally honest. I am not an Egyptologist. I'm just studying an object that happens to be Egyptian, so I don't have context for that. I've heard things that that there is somebody hot on the trail, but I don't know. Yes.
I actually saw a documentary with that.
Really? What was the name? Do you know?
Not exactly, but I like started to see this documentary and about Egypt, and it's so exciting for me.
Yay, I'm so glad. It is exciting. I'll have to look that up. I'll watch that for sure. Thank you. Anyone else? Question? Yeah.
What was your favorite bit?
My favorite bit of like the research?
Yeah.
Ooh, good question. Probably, that's hard because I love my research. But I worked a lot with amazing people in all of the labs. So probably all of the really cool scientists and researchers that I met. That's probably my favorite part. Thank you. Do you have any other question or? Perfect, yeah.
I was wondering, do you plan on doing more research? And if so, what are you planning on trying to find out?
Good question, very good question. So something we mentioned was the gas chromatography mass spectrometry. That methodology wasn't complete yet. We haven't finished the data processing yet. So there's still a lot of things that we could learn about the mummy in that methodology. So that's continuing research. And Along with that, the mummy will go into the Museum of Anthropology in their exhibit. So an exhibit will then be created for the mummy as well. And this research kind of helps that research move on. So yeah.
I'm going to follow up on that question, because one other thing that we have learned is that these processes weren't written down. It was several thousand years later that we have some written accounts from Greek scholars about the mummification process. And so archaeologists are finding new information every time they study these mummies about the different types of not chemicals, but different types of materials that they use in the embalming and on the textiles. And so one of our research here was to share this with you to get you all excited about our field, but we have to share it with our colleagues too. And so we'll present our work in front of other archaeologists so that they can learn from our studies too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
So the label said it was a mummified cat.
Yeah.
Can you recall the feeling when you began to wonder whether it might not be a cat? What was that like?
Good question. So I'm going to be totally honest. When we first got the mummy, I didn't think that there would be anything in it. There is a lot. Ancient Egyptian religion is very like convoluted. So it's very, it has a lot of layers to it. And I know that there is this belief in ancient Egyptian religion that if you write something, it is. So we often find in tombs wrappings with nothing actually inside because they simply wrote cat mummy and now it's a cat mummy, kind of like that. So I didn't think that there would be anything in it. And then I never really thought that it would be a cat. Of course, though, we did all of the necessary research looking into what cat mummies are and why they were created. But when I first saw the image pop up on the screen in the CT lab, I was awestruck and very confused. And that's probably the best way I could explain it, confusion.
Sascha, could you put that picture back?
Yes.
So I'm the photographer in this picture, and you can see they're just like leaning in because we're just watching it. It's slow. I mean, it's fast, but yet it's slow at the same time. And it's like time has changed in this lab for us. And so we were all just like, and I remember getting just giddy. I was just like, oh, there's something in there. I think that's what I did. I mean, because we all convinced ourselves there would be nothing there.
Thank you for the question.
So
Yes.
I'm definitely a textiles person.
Oh, yes.
And I noticed the different types, and then you mentioned the different forms of resin that were used.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it would be possible with further research? And I know there's been a lot of looting and a lot of trading, so it's kind of hard to identify where things come from.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think with further research into the type of textiles and what it's made of, that we might be able to figure out about what area of Egypt it come from? Like, oh, it come from the north because we know this type of flax grows there, and they had these components for this resin.
That's a really important question. I love that you asked that because that's something that kind of we were thinking about as well, and we thought that we might identify that with GCMS. With ancient Egyptian mummifications, a lot of the materials that they use from different parts of Egypt are similar. There is Egypt is a very complex society, so they have a lot of trade routes and they have a lot of intermingling, so areas aren't necessarily isolated from one another. So flax linen we see in a lot of mummifications from a lot of different areas of Egypt. However, it could happen if we find something that's really telling in our results for further data processing for the GCMS to see, like in the resins, if there is something that's specific to one area, that could be telling. But that's as far as we've gotten with that. But it is a very good possibility. So, yeah. Yes.
I was just kind of wondering, who would be like making these mummies? Is it just kind of like the priests or like the high kind of class, or is this something like a normal everyday person would do to like memorialize their pet?
Yeah, so most mummifications happened with priests in temples. They were kind of like certified to do it. And it's interesting because mummifications do differ often depending on what class of society you're in. So if you have maybe more money, you might have a more complex mummy. But mainly it was done by priests. Yeah.
Why was it initially theorized that it may have been a cat mummified when they really had no proof that anything at all was inside?
Good question. That's a very good question. So on the tag, it says the Galtz Memorial or Memoriam Museum. We've done a lot of research into trying to find that museum, and it has no digital footprint at all. We could not find it. So we don't have context for why they would have written that. The only idea I could guess would be that the student that gave Dr. Francis Flame the mummy, maybe their family wrote that. Maybe that's what they were told. But we don't know, other than the fact that it was written there, unfortunately, which is very mystifying.
Okay, here's another question.
Yeah.
So in the image that we see here, there's a clear skull and what looks like a spine, but
Yes.
why do you think we don't see any of the rest of the bones that we would expect to see, like the four legs or anything else?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a lot more visible, just the skull and the vertebra. And it is because it is like a black and white. It's what we first see when the scan renders. But when we go into the digital process of it, we can see that like here, these are its legs. Up here is the arms, yeah. And so when they mummified it, these limbs are, so legs are like broken that way, and that way, and then that way, and that way. And its arms are, its scapulas are pushed downwards in, and its paws are laid over each other, so very purposefully, but they are there. It's just hard to see in this image. I'm so sorry.
It sounds like they've just been collapsed, just to shrink the.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. There is a lot of shrinking in the mummification process. Yeah, drying out and yeah.
I think there's a lot of questions. A couple more here.
I love them. Yeah.
Do you think you'll ever find anything about on anything else that's Egyptian?
Say that one more time. I'm so sorry.
Find anything else that's Egyptian?
Here in our museum, or?
Do you think you'll ever research anything Egyptian again?
Oh, after this. So, like I mentioned, I am really passionate about museum objects, and this object happens to be Egyptian. But I'm really interested in, when I graduate, going off to a maritime archaeology program and doing maritime research. So like shipwrecks and anchors and sunken cannons and that kind of thing. That's my goal after I graduate. So I might end up, there's a lot of marine archaeology in Egypt, so I might end up studying things that are Egyptian. But as of right now, it is up in the air because I do really like Caribbean archaeology. And and so that's maybe where I'll go, but we'll see. Yeah.
Is there a way to find out here?
Oh, hi.
Is there a way to find out either how the puppy was originally killed or how old the puppy itself was without drilling in and risking the whole thing falling apart? Or can you have tiny needles that you can get a sample of without risking that? Or
Really good question. So, yeah. So, We see with a lot of papers that are published looking at canine tombs, they analyze them and see that there is blunt force trauma. Often there's, I apologize to the children in the room, but there's often damage to the skull or breakage of the vertebra, like the cervical vertebra, so your neck. And that kind of tells us the way that the animals died. However, with my current CT rendering, I've just completed the skull. I've also completed the vertebra. And from what I can tell, everything is intact. However, in the skull, I wonder if I have a photo. Let's see. Here we go. Here you can see that the bone is heavily degraded. The mandible is almost completely gone. The maxilla is almost completely gone. And there is then this slight formation here of bone, and then it's completely open here again. We cannot tell if this was pre or post-mortem. However, it looks as if it was almost stabbed in the face. And something along those lines. There is blunt force trauma that we can see, but we don't know if that's because of the bone degradation or if it is something that happened before the puppy passed. But with determining how old it is, we have, this is not the photo, here with the skull, yeah. You can see the fontanella, the soft spot up here on the top of the skull. The sutures have not fully fused. That happens in puppies 6 to 8 weeks when it fully fuses. And the teeth here, unfortunately, we don't have soft tissue to demonstrate, but the teeth have not erupted from the gums in the scans. And that happens in puppies 2 to 4 weeks old. So this animal was younger than 2 weeks. And it could be theorized that it was a neonate to 2 weeks old. Yeah, of course.
I can see one more question, and this will be our, okay, go ahead.
Do you guys know what breed, or are you guys going to send off a sample to find out what kind of breed of dog that is?
That's a really good question. So we have really tried to work with biologists here, and we've talked to vets and we've talked to experts in canine skeletal remains. However, they've told us, because it is so young and the bone is degraded, it is going to be nearly impossible to identify the species of dog.
Different canine species will have different numbers of teeth, so that's one way that we could potentially do that, but ours is missing some, so we don't have enough evidence to say conclusively. So it's very possible it could be domestic dog or wild dog or jackal. I hope jackal, Anubis. But it could be, fox. All of those animals have been found in these tombs to Anubis. So it could be any one of them. The most common, though, are domestic dogs.
Yes, exactly. Any other?
Let's give a big round of applause to our speakers once again.
Thank you.